want to take you on an adventure. It has to do with this water here behind me. You know, the great thing about Jesus, what made him such a great teacher, in fact probably the greatest teacher the world's ever seen, was that he could take the smallest thing, the most ordinary thing, like the flowers or water or hills or birds, clouds, and he could make that little thing tie into the biggest thing possible. He could take little stories and attach them to the biggest story that's ever been written. And I want to show you today just one example of how that can happen. And it has to do with this water. That's Lake Burrendong behind me there. And there's quite a story behind that lake. It's not a natural lake. It got there because it was man-built. It was a way of storing water. And water, particularly in this backcountry of New South Wales, is gold. The river that feeds that starts over near the Blue Mountains, travels hundreds of kilometres, and it waters farms, orchards, vineyards and cities all along its route until it gets to here. We're going to go down to the dam wall and you'll have a look at that, and then we're going to track a bit of the story on the rest of its journey because it goes a long way from here. You know, we were here a bit over a year ago and there was hardly any water in that dam there at all. It was just like a big empty bowl. In fact, there was a big bushfire burning up the back of the mountain here. And just down there, a helicopter was landing with a big scoop, pulling up water, taking off, going across that way over the mountain to drop water on the fire. That's Australia, isn't it? Somebody said in a poem, the creeks run dry or 10 feet high, it's either drought or plenty. So managing water and using our water skillfully is one of the things we've had to really learn a lot about in Australia because it's life. The water is life. And Jesus taught a lot about water and how that it brings life. In fact, he said, I can give you a well bubbling up inside you that can give you life that lasts forever. Well, that's a big promise. This wall here you can see is the dam wall, and it's made up of lots of big rocks that sort of blocked off the water. There was a town way out in the middle there in the original times, and it was buried under the water there eventually. So the water, this holds the water back, and this supplies water for the whole region below the dam. And this water that you see here, it's got a long journey in front of it. It actually travels a couple of thousand kilometres. It goes northwest all the way down the Macquarie River, joins the Bogan River, joins the Darling River. The Darling flows all the way down to South Australia to meet the Murray, and then from the Murray down to the sea. So this water has got a long journey, and on its way it nurtures an awful lot of countryside, an awful lot of farms and towns and villages all along the way draw water from this source. So if you were to follow this water, and row a canoe or a boat all the way down the river, you would see what the water does, the life that it brings to people, to animals, to farms, to fruit, to sheep, cattle and so on. So this is one of Australia's great resources, and we're going to go down the river near where I live, and I'll show you another bit of the story. I'm standing about 60 kilometres from the dam we were at yesterday. This is the Macquarie River and it's flowing northwest towards Burke, another 400 kilometres, joins the Darling, goes another 1,500 kilometres to the sea, meanders its way down there. But you know, for thousands of years all along these riverbanks here, the indigenous people lived, worked, fished, made tools all along these riverbanks. And one of the things they used were these big river gums here. You can see one behind me. And they were one of their main assets, and they're one of the icons of Australia, if you like, all along this river, all along our rivers, these beautiful big river gums. The reason they get so strong is pretty evident. If you look down here, you'll see a great big root system. Big thick roots like big snakes driving down. Where I'm standing I can see it go down another 40 feet and then it probably goes another 40 or 50 feet down underneath the river. So this great big strong river gum here began just as a tiny seed. When the floods come, the seed spread and the little saplings begin to grow, and then 1,000 years these can grow and grow these magnificent big trees. They're very, very durable, very hard, so the Aboriginal people use them for tools. They made canoes, they made coolamons to carry things in. So it's one of the great statements about Australia, if you like, water and river gums. You know, there's an ancient wisdom in the Bible that's captured in a little poem, probably written by David about 3,000 years ago. And in that poem, he must have lived out in the bush in the Outback, because he says, you know, a man who doesn't sort of hang out with people who are jeering at life or taking life superficially, but people who really want to take life seriously and grow strong and blessed are the people that drive their roots down into the river like a big river gum. That's why they grow up strong. And a man who drives his roots down into the Word of God, who lets that Word become part of his thinking and then part of his life, that's how you become fruitful. That's how you become strong. When I was young, I learned a little saying that went like this: sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. So it all starts in your head. Start what you're thinking. Be careful what you think. Think good thoughts. Find a good source to draw on to give you good thoughts, good clear thinking about life. Tested thinking. And that's what the Bible offers. And then the actions that follow your thinking, that's becomes sort of habitual. That's who you are. That becomes your character. And at the end of the day, that's what your destiny is. That's what your whole life adds up to. You know, I've talked to a lot of young people over the years, and one of the things I've asked them, I said, how many people here are planning to stuff their life up? Put your hands up. Well, as I recollect, I don't think I've ever heard anybody, apart from somebody fooling about, put their hand up and say, yep, I'm planning to stuff my life up. We don't. But if you don't plan carefully, if you don't sink your roots into something permanent, then, you know, that poem says, well, you'll be a bit like a bit of grass. See this little piece of grass here, there's not much of a root system on it. And when the dry times come, as they are now, and it's beginning to dry off, and the wind blows, then it just blows away. Unlike this magnificent river gum, with its roots deep into the river, drawing up from the water, that makes it strong. You know, I think to myself, if you young people who are listening to this, and you older people too, if we had people who were willing to sink their lives deep into the Word of God, we'd grow strong people. People that are willing to stand alone, young people who are willing to stand against the crowd when they're just sort of drifting off doing this, that and the other thing, or listening to whatever on YouTube, or being pushed here and there by messages on the Instagram and things. But if you've got strong purpose, if you've got a clear idea of who you are and where you're going and what God's purpose is for your life, it makes all the difference. And you won't be driven here and there, and your life will become fruitful like these great big gums with their big shady limbs that reach out, that give strength and durability. How good would that be? And what if we had young men and women like that who were growing up strong, who were strong enough to build a business, for example, so that the business is built on good principles, or families that are built around the Word of God that are strong, or maybe a farm, or maybe a sporting team, or it could be a whole community or a church, eventually a country. Men and women who know what the power of the water is, the Word of God. Jesus himself drove his roots deep into the Word of God. That's what made him strong. That's what made him the most courageous leader in history. That's what made him the leader I want to follow. I wonder who you want to follow. If you want a life that's going to be blessed and strong and durable, sink your roots deep into the Word of God. There's a little song about Psalm 1, about growing by the waterside. We're on our way to heaven.
We shall not be moved.
We're on our like a tree that's planted by the waterside.
We shall not be burned.
Yeah! We shall not.
We shall not be burned.
We shall not.
We shall not be burned.
Just like a tree that's planted by the waters. A big finish.